Professor Humbert drives his car down a country road. His car is weaving along. Humbert's face is covered in blood. A bloody gun is on the back seat, and he is holding a hairpin. That hairpin belongs to the girl he fell head over heels in love with, and his whole life went wrong because of her. The roots of this forbidden love must be sought in the professor's youth. When he was 14, Humbert fell in love with a girl, but she died, leaving an unhealed wound in his soul. Many years later, when Humbert came to New England, he found a cure for his youthful anguish. The professor settled in the home of the widow Charlotte Gaze for 2 reasons. The house where he was going to live had burned down, and Charlotte had a charming daughter, Lolita, or simply Lo. Upon seeing Lolita, Humbert lost the power of speech. He was about to refuse Charlotte's offer to stay with her, but then he noticed the young girl under the jets of the sprinkler. Half-forgotten adolescent love stirred in his soul again. Humbert began to make notes in his notebook about Lolita and her mother. He wrote everything frankly, not hiding anything. Charlotte did not attract him much. She often annoyed him with her shouting and quarrels with her daughter. Little Lo, on the other hand, delighted him. The girl sensed this and did her best to encourage Humbert's passionate feelings. However, he did not suspect it was just a game for her. The professor watched Lolita brush her teeth or get up in the middle of the night to eat a delicious snack. He watched her mischief in the yard, trying to spend an extra minute with her. But he didn't notice that Charlotte had a crush on him. Lo had told him about it when she asked him to persuade her mother to take them to the lake. During this trip, Charlotte told Humbert that Lolita would soon go to summer camp, and from there she would move to a boarding school for girls. This news upset Humbert. However, Lolita's departure left him with fond memories. Noticing how he was seeing her off, the girl ran into his bedroom, jumped on top of him, and kissed him passionately. As soon as Lo and her mother left, Humbert burrowed into the girl's clothes in her bedroom. That's where Charlotte's maid found him. She handed him a letter from her mistress. In it, Charlotte asked Humbert to leave the house because she had been desperately in love with him, or he could stay if he was ready to return her feelings. Humbert stayed. Soon, he and Charlotte were married. Humbert became an exemplary husband personality, but despite the stamp on his passport and ring on his finger, he did his best to avoid intimacy with Charlotte. To this end, he experimented with sleeping pills. Once, he managed to incapacitate his wife for 4 hours, but she still woke up when he went to bed and charged him for the spousal debt and the forfeit on top of that. Exhausted from paying off his marital debts, Humbert goes to the doctor to ask for sleeping pills that will put the elephant down for at least 7 hours. Returning home, the professor finds his wife in tears. She opened his desk drawer, where he kept his notes on Lolita and Charlotte, and read them. She realized how vile a creature she had led into her home. Charlotte does not want to see him again. She writes a letter to Lolita while Humbert tries to calm her down. He steps away for a few minutes to pour both of them a scotch, and then the phone rings. An unfamiliar voice tells Humbert that his wife has died. Humbert doesn't believe it. He goes to Charlotte, but she's not there. She ran out of the house to drop letters in the mailbox and was hit by a car in the middle of the street. The driver didn't have time to react when Charlotte suddenly jumped out onto the roadway. Humbert is flabbergasted. He takes Charlotte's letters and burns them in the fireplace. Then he goes to the camp to pick up Lolita. On the way, he books a room for 2 at a hotel. He tells Lolita that her mother is sick. When Humbert brings Lo to the hotel, the girl meets the famous playwright, Claire Quilty. This elderly man takes an unhealthy interest in the cheerful Lolita. Humbert is informed that the room with 2 beds is occupied, and he has to sleep in the same bed as Lolita. The professor does not mind. He and Lolita have dinner, then return to the room, and Humbert leaves the girl alone to tidy herself up before going to bed. He goes out on the terrace where Quilty speaks to him. He is quite drunk and makes dirty hints about Humbert and Lo's relationship. Somehow he senses what the professor wants to do with the girl. When Humbert returns to the room, Lolita is already asleep. In the morning, Lo takes the initiative. The girl makes it clear that this is not the first time for her. On the way home, Lolita wants to call her mother, and Humbert has to tell her the truth. Little Lo cries all night after learning that her mother has died. Yet she has no one left but Professor Humbert, so she quickly forgives him for hiding Charlotte's death. Humbert takes Lolita away from her hometown. They travel around the country, staying in roadside motels and having carefree times. Lolita acts like a typical child. Humbert, on the other hand, takes advantage of a chance that not everyone gets. However, all these rainbows and butterflies come to an end. Humbert decides to send Lo to school. Everything goes well at first, but then it seems to him that the girl is hiding something from him. She asks for more pocket money and manipulates him into letting her perform in the school play. The play was written by Quilty, who the two met at the hotel. Humbert is informed that Lolita has missed several classes. He asks her about it, and the girl comes up with a convincing lie, which her school friend confirms. Humbert thinks that Lolita wants to get away from him. This is what she is saving her pocket money for. They quarrel, and Lo runs away. The professor has been searching for her for a long time in the pouring rain and finally finds her in a cafe. The girl is talking to someone on the phone. He takes her home, and Lolita says she wants to leave. Only this time, she will choose the route herself. They set off again on a journey across the country. On their way, Humbert notices that someone is following them, and the stranger is not hiding. At a gas station, he sees Lolita talking to a man. When he asked her about it, the girl replied that the stranger was asking for directions. They stop at another motel, and Humbert goes to get some fruit. When he returns, he realizes that Lolita has gone somewhere. He loses his mind with jealousy and tries to find out from her who she is so infatuated with. Yet little Lo only laughs back. She realizes that the professor is completely at her mercy. After a while, Lolita falls ill. She has to be taken to the hospital. Humbert is sent home. The next day, he is told that his daughter has gotten better, and his uncle has picked her up. Humbert is furious. He runs to the hospital and beats up the doctor, trying to find out who they handed his little girl over to. But when he notices the police, he calms down and leaves. However, he is not willing to give up so easily. He goes to all the motels where he and Lo have stayed, looking for entries in the visitors' books, and noting one man with particular handwriting who signed with different names. Humbert realizes that it was this man who took Lolita away. Finally, he realizes that Lolita is gone from his life irrevocably. Humbert returns to his old job, and 3 years later receives a letter from her. Lo tells him that she is married and expecting a child. She asks her daddy to send her and her husband a few $100s so that they can at least pay off some of their debts. In the end, she signs with her husband's name. Humbert decides to go to Lolita. He practices shooting his pistol. The professor intends to deal with the man who took his girl. Lolita has settled on the outskirts of the city in a poor neighborhood. The door was opened to him by a grown-up girl with a rounded belly. Yet Humbert saw her as the Lolita he had fallen in love with years earlier. He is still crazy about her. The girl invites her former lover into the house. She says that her husband believes that Humbert is her father. She also tells him that she has only ever loved Quilty. However, he kicked her out when Lolita did not want to star in his spicy movies with minors. Humbert gives her $4,000 and says that she can keep it anyway, but he needs to know if he has any chance of baby Lo coming back to him. Lolita replies that there is no chance. As she talks about Quilty, she casually mentions where he lives. After saying goodbye, Humbert leaves. Driving away from her house, he sees the old Lolita in the pregnant girl for a moment. Humbert finds Quilty's house, goes upstairs, and meets the owner in a robe. Quilty is barely conscious, as he is high on drugs. Humbert brings him to his senses by threatening him with a gun. He wants Quilty to realize what he is going to be killed for. When clarity of thought returns to him, he tries to take the gun away from Humbert but fails. Quilty then tried to run, but the professor managed to shoot him several times. Quilty crawled into his bed, cramped with fear. It was in this bed that Humbert finished him off. Covered in blood, he drove away in his car. On the way, he was stopped by the police. Humbert, however, did not seem to notice anything around him. All his thoughts turned to Lolita. Humbert was taken to prison, where he died of a heart attack. Lolita died a few weeks later in childbirth. And that's where the movie ends. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to watch more movie recaps videos like this.